You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, everybody? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. It is episode 48. That's right, 48 episodes. I missed last week because I was like, fuck it, there's no UFC. I'm not going to cover the regional promotions because I'm too busy. So, here we are. We're back with UFC this week. That's awesome. But before I get into all our UFC goodness that we have this week and coming next week, because remember, next week is the Abu Dhabi card, and I get to go to my first live event, so that's going to be fucking awesome. So I'll talk about that the next day after. Plus, Enter the Realm, a podcast that I'm going to be co-hosting on the MMA Gaming channel, Discord, whatever the fuck, wherever it's going to be. I'm pretty sure they're going to have their own channel for it, but the MMA Gaming folks have started a podcast called Enter the Realm. I'm going to be co-hosting that, and that is going to be happening this next weekend, actually. Not this weekend, the next one. So the one that I'm going to be going to my live card at, the day after, I'll be recording the episode for this, and then I'll be recording the episode for Enter the Realm. But anyway, let's get into our first topic, because I have one that is probably going to have me rambling and ranting for a good solid 10 minutes. Good way to fill some airtime. Why not? Anyway, let's jump right into it. So, what I'm talking about is about 3 weeks ago. I want to say 3 weeks ago. The Jeffrey Dahmer biopic came out on Netflix. And if you haven't already, it's pretty fucking good. I'm going to say a little bit of a spoiler alert, but it's literally his life, so you should know what happens. But anyway, it's really good. Check it out. But my big issue with it is not the show itself. It's the fandom surrounding it. So, at first when the show came out, I saw a lot of sensitive Nancys bitching and complaining about that the show even came out, saying like, why'd the show come out? Why didn't you guys think about, the victims' families, the trauma that they're going through? You're making them relive the trauma. And basically, what I got to say about that is shut the fuck up. It's been 30 to 40, almost 50 years for some murders. Shut your fucking mouth. Stop being such a little pussy-ass bitch. But I'm still going to say that to them, because I don't agree with them at all. They should shut the fuck up about the show being on there. My issue is the fandom surrounding the show. There is girls, and I mean, granted, understandably so, some of them are teenagers, but one of them, a specific example I'm going to use today, is grown-ass woman. Grown-ass woman that looks around my age. I'm 25, by the way, so grown-ass woman that looks my age, and the things she said just made me think, how did you get past the public school system? How did you get past high school? Because really, with the fucking thought process this woman has, it's a wonder how she made it past. Anyway, so with every serial killer biopic and the hot actor that plays the serial killer, you usually get to see a group of teenage girls drool over the serial killer, joke about how they would have been their victim, stuff like that. And while I think that's kind of fucking gross to joke about, it's whatever. They're teenage girls, man. Like, they don't know any better. They're stupid. They're horny. They're going to look back on this when they're actually grown-ass adults with developed brains, and they're going to be like, why the fuck did I think that way? That's fucked. My issue is the actual grown-ass adults that have developed brains thinking this. And I'm not going to say the TikToker's name. The TikToker actually, was embarrassed enough where she actually shut off the comments to her TikTok. Actually, pretty sure she fucking deleted it. It's mostly re-uploads you'll find now. But the TikTok goes as follows. It was her basically talking about her reaction to the final episode of the biopic. So if you guys don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer gets he gets baseball played with on his skull. People basically he gets his head caved in, is what I'm trying to fucking say. He gets his brains splattered all over the pavement, and they show that. And this woman had the audacity to say she sympathized with Jeffrey at that moment and bawled her eyes out because Jeffrey was getting his head smashed in. My biggest issue with that is the fact that you fucking sympathized with the killer. it's not that you sympathize with the killer at all, because the biopic is supposed to kind of expose the life and times of Jeffrey Dahmer, and you're supposed to sympathize with him in the beginning. You know, when it's kind of showing the shitty childhood and life he had, you're supposed to sympathize with him then. You're supposed to stop sympathizing with him, however, when he starts to commit his actions. You didn't. You continued to sympathize with him after he committed his actions. Mind you, may I remind you that Jeffrey Dahmer primarily targeted black people. Yeah, he had like one Asian person or two Asian people and a Hispanic in his fucking, in his victims, and a white person, because that was his first one. But out of 17, I did the math offline before I recorded this. Out of 17 victims, 14, a whopping 14 of them were black. And you still wanted to sympathize with him, even though he was getting his comeuppance. It was a black person caving his head in, too. That's literally how it happened in real life. This black inmate came up, and I guess this other dude that killed his wife and blamed it on black people was in there, too, and him and Jeffrey were chatting up a storm, and he just came up and fucking killed them both. Rightfully so. Disgusting, murder-ass fucking racists. Deservingly so. But this woman was talking about how she was bawling her eyes out, looking over at her boyfriend saying, "Are you fucking serious? Are you fucking serious? They're gonna kill Jeffrey off like it was a fucking MCU series. Like there's gonna be a season 2 of Dahmer." Like she was looking at him like, "Are you serious? They're just gonna do that to him? They're just gonna kill him off like that? Like it was a fucking actual like TV series?" And I was just like, first of all, you're fucking stupid. That's how it happened in real life. There's gonna be no season 2 of this biopic. Secondly, really? You're sympathizing with the killer now when he's getting his comeuppance? You didn't sympathize with him when his mom fucking berated him and constantly told him how he was a fucking failure and he was weird? You didn't sympathize with him when he was left alone at the age of 17 because his mom didn't want anything to do with him or his fucking dad? Like, you didn't sympathize with him in his childhood? You sympathize with him way after he committed all the fucking murders? You're weird. And then there's the, I'm not going to fucking talk about them too much, but then there's the vocal adult women on TikTok who sexualize Jeffrey Dahmer because of who's playing him. If you guys didn't know, Evan Peters was playing Dahmer in the biopic, and, you know, he's a rather attractive feller. My issue with that is the fact that Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't attractive at all, and the fact that you guys are sexualizing him and saying you would have ended up a victim of him is probably the most disgusting thing I've heard anyone utter. But my biggest issue with these killer biopics, I love them. I love true crime. If you enjoy true crime, I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it. If you enjoy true crime like I do, watch it. It's fucking awesome. It's a great biopic. Really digs deep. Really fucking shed some light onto his past a lot more than the other one did. It's great. It's the fandom that really ruins it for you. It's those fucking impressionable girls that are drooling over him, that are basically at night sticking their whole forearms in their fucking pussies to just make themselves come over thinking about Dahmer eating them, just weird shit like that. Those are the people I worry about. Those are the people that I have an issue with. And I don't think we should be idolizing serial killers like that. It's great to use their story for Hollywood. Let's make some money off these fucks because they're not getting any of it. But don't idolize them like people do, man. Like, it's so fucked. It was the same thing when the Ted Bundy thing happened. Like, if anybody remembered the Ted Bundy biopic with Zac Efron, there were grown-ass adult women talking about how they would have been victims to Zac Efron's Ted Bundy because Ted Bundy was so attractive, how they would have been happy to be victims of Ted Bundy, just fucked shit like that, completely dismissing the actual victims of Ted Bundy. Like, it was so fucked. So disgusting, so fucked. And yeah, that's my biggest issue. That's my topic for today. My takeaway from it is, let's stop idolizing serial killers no matter how hot the actor that plays them is. You have to remember, in real life, they're not the actor. It's time we separate the character, like the actor from the character. Yes, the actor looks attractive as the character, but it's time to separate the actor from the character. And not in the sense of, yeah, we're attacking Evan Peters because he's playing Jeffrey Dahmer. No, like, we need to separate the actor's likeness from the character's likeness, because that's not how the actual serial killer looked at all. And I guarantee you, most of you would have looked at him and thought he was fucking weird in real life. You wouldn't have been sexually attracted to him at all. But that, that's another story. Anyway, that's it for this half. Before I continue on a even bigger rant, because like I said, I could talk about this topic all day. I fucking hate it. I want to just go to the sponsor real quick. I want to just give W a little bit of a time to say a little bit of a message from them. My favorite drink of all time, by the way. And then we are going to get into the UFC. So first off, a little message from my favorite drink, W. Then we'll get into the UFC. Before we get into the podcast, I just want to talk to you guys about my new sponsor, W. What is W? W is a powdered energy drink that is actually a clean energy drink that's made to give you a focus with no crash or jitters or any angst that the other energy drinks on the market give you. They're also made with no maltodextrin fillers. They don't use any artificial dyes or any coloring, anything like that. And on top of that, W contains vitamins, amino acids, nootropics, and caffeine that keeps you going. And on top of that, it's gluten-free. So if you're worried about your gluten intake, it's okay. These guys got you covered. And if you're worried about it coming out of a facility that's not FDA approved or FDA inspected, these guys, they're doing it legit. Their product's made in an FDA inspected facility and their product is FDA approved. So if you want to try any of these awesome flavors, because let's be honest, I'm about to tell you this, their flavors are all unique. You're not going to find a flavor anywhere else, only here at W. So if you want to try 3 of their awesome new flavors in a starter pack with your own mixer cup, go on their website, pick the starter pack. It's $14.99. If you want to get 10% off of it, use Dillo's Dojo at checkout. That's DILLOS at checkout for 10% off. Once again, I want to thank W for sponsoring the podcast. Anyway, enjoy your W drink if you manage to use my code. Let's get back to the fights, folks. All right, so we're going to get into some of these fights. We had quite a night of combat sports. It wasn't mostly MMA, like we had UFC, but we also had Clarissa Shields fighting Savannah Marshall, which was pretty cool. It was actually a really fucking good fight. I don't know, I'm not really much of a box. Like, I love boxing, and I will watch it whenever there's a big fight. And I don't know, I'm not really an aficionado of, fucking women's boxing or whatever, but it was a damn good fight for a women's boxing bout. It was incredible. So, watch that. I ended up watching Deontay Wilder and Devin, Hellenius, or whatever his name is. And obviously UFC, because I can't just go the night without watching it. So anyway, let's get into the fights. I'll just cover the boxing bouts first because I wanted to talk about them. First off is Deontay Wilder knocking out fucking whatever that Hellenis, whatever his name is, knocking out random white dude to get back into the title graces. Holy shit, the knockout. His right hand is an absolute lightning fast rocket. Like, he was backed up against the corner of the ring, bobbing and weaving, and Hellenis came in, and it looked like he hit him with a left hook, like a counter left hook as he was coming in. Nah, man, he hit him with a fucking lightning fast right hook that landed square on his nose as he was coming in and knocked the buddy, square out. And it was so fast. I remember I had to watch it a couple times the next day to even watch it. Even the slow-mo, I didn't even see it live. I was watching it live. It just fucking happened. I was sitting there what the fuck just happened? And then they showed the slow-mo and I was like, nah. So the clip came out after, and even then, I was watching the clip over and over again. I couldn't even see the right hand. I needed the slow-mo. I literally, without the slow-mo, I had to watch that shit 5 times to see the right hand. It was fast. So good win by Deontay Wilder. I don't know what's next for him. Some people want to see the AJ fight. Some people want to see him rematch Fury for another time. I don't know why, but yeah, it was incredible. Next one obviously was Savannah Marshall versus Clarissa Shields. That was incredible. Clarissa Shields started out strong in the first round. Savannah Marshall came back and kind of started getting her footing in the second round, but Clarissa Shields noticed that coming into the third and just started to run away with it, basically. There was maybe 1 or 2 other rounds for Savannah Marshall, but Clarissa Shields was just doing incredible shit with counterattacking, just bobbing and weaving, swaying out of the way and landing counter shots as she was doing it. She was constantly backing up, landing at will, landing clean. It was great. It was a great performance. I may not like Clarissa Shields, but I can't deny how incredible she is at boxing. It was It was really nice to watch. It was incredible. Savannah Marshall, though, just was eating those punches, walking forward, trying to land clean ones of her own. And there was times where she did land clean. Like, it looked like she hurt Claressa Shields a couple times with the punches. They were heavy punches, but Claressa Shields, with the incredible defensive tactic that she had like implemented, constantly bobbing and weaving out of the way, and just her counter striking was on point. So I gotta give her credit. I gotta give credit where credit is due. Anyway, that brings us into the good old UFC, and we're going to go the whole card because, these names, they're not big names, but I liked the fights that happened last night. Honestly, I enjoyed them. So let's go to the first one. The first one was a weird one. Pete Rodriguez, who was 4-1 going into this, or 3-1 going into this, I can't remember, going up against 1-1 Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson is the guy who fought CM Punk in CM Punk's last UFC fight. Most recently was seen winning a fight against Dean Barry because Dean Barry doesn't know how to gauge distance without his fingers being outstretched, and ended up getting a DQ win over Dean Barry. So Mike Jackson's lone actual win is a DQ win over Dean Barry, and he was coming into this pretty confident for some reason. I don't know why. But Pete Rodriguez basically just came in and said, no, go fuck yourself, you glorified reporter, and kneed him into oblivion. Had him pinned against the cage, hurt him with a couple punches, and forced him to kind of like duck out of the way, kind of weave out of the way. And the way he dipped allowed for a beautiful knee to just land, which knocked Mike Jackson out fucking cold against the cage. Like his legs folded inward, and he was just out cold. Pete Rodriguez landed one or two extra shots to just kind of stamp it in, and the ref stepped in. Like, he noticed he was out cold. Limp. Completely limp. That was the first fight. So we started off with absolute violence. The next fight was supposed to be a flyweight bout, but it was a catchweight bout between Tatsuo Taira and CJ Vergara. CJ Vergara came in about 4 pounds overweight, and that's why it was changed to a catchweight. But Tatsuo came in absolutely undeterred. It was a complete, on the feet, Tatsuo was hurting CJ Vergara pretty damn good with heavy strikes, but on the ground, it was really, really close. CJ Vergara kind of in the first showing that he was the better grappler until Tatsuo got really comfortable. And then it just started to become a scrambling, grappling affair. And on the feet, they were kind of grappling where Tatsuo just kind of went for a Hail Mary armbar as CJ was kind of standing up and got it. He forced the submission in the tap, near the end of the second round. It was incredible. It was a fast-paced fight of just pure violence until a submission was called. The next fight, though, was a women's strawweight bout where the pace of the card kind of slowed down a bit. Piera Rodriguez just, after a slow first round, just dominated Sam Hughes, and for some reason closer on the judges' scorecards for some reason, but a 29-28 unanimous decision. So that happened. Basically just something we can kind of brush off, honestly. The next fight, though, was a really exciting fight, actually. It was a featherweight bout between Joanderson Brito and Lucas Alexander, and this was really fast-paced, pretty much an all-grappling affair. Nothing but scrambling. Joanderson Brito, like a lightning-fast fucking little spider monkey, just taking Lucas Alexander's back like it was nothing and just slapping in the rear naked choke. And it was tight. He went for it and forced the tap, so it was pretty great. But alas, like I said, you can't keep the pace going. Jacob Malkoun versus Nick Maximov. It was looking to be a pretty decent fight, even though Jacob Malkoun was seen to just kind of use it as wrestling. But it was basically two grapplers against each other. Two wrestlers slated against each other. A lot of people are expecting a stand-up bout because of it being two grapplers kind of standing up against each other. It's kind of how it is when it is two wrestlers. They're kind of just wanting to stay on the feet because both of their grappling prowesses are the danger. They want to stay out of that threat, even though they want to get their own going. But, you kind of want to stay off the ground with a guy who's just as good with you on the ground. And that's kind of what we thought was going to be, right? We thought it was going to be a striking affair. Both guys kind of scared of each other's wrestling, not wanting to engage each other because it's going to be it's going to be a hard grappling affair. Nope. Jacob Malkoun had a plan, and he stuck to it. He said, I'm going to fucking out-wrestle this bastard, and that's exactly what he did. And I think somewhere around the first round, Nick Maximov kind of, he suffered I believe a tear in his knee. Something happened to his knee. He wasn't right after the first round. He was clearly limping back to his corner, but he stayed on it. He was like, nope, I'm going to keep fighting. In between rounds, he kept telling them that it's not bothering him that much, but it was clearly bothering him. Like, after the first round, and when that something happened to his knee, the second round was basically Jacob Malkoun going for a takedown, and there was literally no attempt of defense at all. No scramble, nothing. It was clear something was up with his knee. He let the takedown happen, and then as soon as he's in bottom guard, he didn't really try much. He basically let the wrestling prowess of Jacob Malkoun happen. And it was very boring. It was a very boring fight, very dominant by Jacob Malkoun, but it was very obvious that something happened to Maximov's knee in the first round, and that basically just kind of, after that happened, it just determined the rest of the fight. Maximov wanted to fight on it, and Malkoun was like, nope, you know what? Since you have no defense for me because your knee is fucked on the ground, I'm going to keep implementing my wrestling plan. And that's exactly what he did. He rode Nick Maximov to a dominant 30-27 decision. It was just completely dominant. But the next one was the prelim headliner. And honestly, usually decisions are pretty boring, but this one was fucking fun. We had a bantamweight bout between Mana Martinez and Brandon Killer B. Davis. Brandon Killer B. Davis returning after a little bit of a hiatus. And my God, man, what an opponent to return back to. Mana Martinez is no slouch. Dude is a killer at bantamweight and is slowly climbing up those ranks. And my God, the fight we got last night with Mana Martinez and Brandon Davis, I wouldn't be surprised if they won fight of the night. It was incredible. It was a back and forth affair. Both guys hurting each other. First round, Mana Martinez looked like he was completely hurt. Looked like Brandon Davis had him. And then near the end of the round, Mana Martinez hurting him. And then in the second round, same thing. Mana Martinez going to work early in the second round, looking like he's hurting Brandon Davis. Brendan Davis surviving. Near the end of the round, same thing. Has Brendan Davis hurt. Just Brendan Davis showing the complete heart of a lion as he's hurt. He's still walking forward and everything. Third round, it's like all of a sudden a switch flipped. Brendan Davis is like, nah, man, I was hurt at the end of the second round. I need to get something going. Both guys just fucking going on the ground, on the feet. It was just a back and forth affair. Like, my God, man. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they won fight of the night. It was incredible. Like, I was sitting there watching them, like, like I'm watching these strikes land and they're heavy. And it's clear like Brandon Davis is hurt and he's wobbling. Mana Martinez is just exhausting every ounce of energy he's got trying to put Davis away, and Davis is just hanging on. Davis recovers and then just has Mana Martinez on the fucking ropes. And same thing, Mana Martinez holding on, just biting down on the mouthpiece. Oh my God, incredible fight. Definitely going to watch it again after this recording because, my God, just talking about it, getting me excited about it. It was a great fight. That was just an incredible way to kick off the prelims. We move on to the main card, and we got Alonzo Menafield versus Misha Cirkunov. Alonzo Menafield, man, not even 90 seconds into the fight, he comes in and just starts throwing bombs, man. They're kind of like gauging the distance at first, but Alonzo has been kind of landing a little bit. But it wasn't until this little set of combos here. He landed like a 1-2 combination that sent Mika Cirkunov with his back turned. And all of a sudden, a nice little low right hook to the jaw landed as Misha's back was turned. That dropped him and kind of like caused him to kind of flop onto his back. And as he's on his back, fucking Alonzo Menafield lands this like 1-2 combo of a back fist, on like a grounded back fist, and then a hook right after just to kind of put a stamp on it. Like, it was a brutal finish, a brutal knockout. And honestly, it was kind of scary. Misha Cirkunov was out for quite a bit. Alonzo Menafield looked pretty worried, even though, he was pretty happy with his win. It was just a brutal fucking knockout. My God. And then we get the veteran, a bantamweight bout between Rafael Assunção and Victor Henry. And honestly, I thought this was going to be a closer matchup. It was slated to be a way closer matchup on paper. I was very surprised that it wasn't as close as it was. And Rafael Assunção, man, it was like after his last fight, he went to a lab and was like, okay, I'm getting old. I need to fix things real soon because I'm not getting any younger. And it's like, that's exactly what he did. Like, the time off, he was like, yeah, I'm going to fix these things. And then he fixed those things. And just, my God, man. It wasn't fight of the night caliber, but Rafael Assunção's performance was so dominant. Victor Henry had some good highlight moments, but my God, man, Asuncao outpointed him in every aspect of the game. He outstruck him, out wrestled him, out grappled him. It was literally just a clinic. Just showed how much more experienced Rafael Asuncao is, and ended up scoring himself a very dominant on all scorecards 30-27 decision. Like it was a great showing by Rafael Asuncao. Like there's no doubting that. There is no doubting that. My God. But we had, like, honestly, this card was great. We had finish after finish, pretty decent decisions. Like the fights that resulted in decisions weren't too boring. And I mean, like, we had finish after finish because the next fight was a middleweight bout between Dusko Todorovic and Jordan Wright. And honestly, this wasn't even slated to go one round. It was supposed to be like a don't blink affair. Both guys had the capability of putting each other out. Jordan Wright, kind of a pretty balanced mixed martial artist, but pretty known for having power on the feet, decided to go with a wrestle-heavy approach. And honestly, had Dusko in a lot of trouble in the first round. I thought it was going to be over at one point in the first round. He had Dusko hurt, like, pretty bad. It went from on the feet to the ground real fast because of a shot that Dusko took, and it was clear he was hurt. But he survived. He rallied back. Pretty slow round after that. Going into the second round, though, like, it's clear Jordan Wright getting up off the ground. He's going back to his corner. He's exhausted. He's wasted every ounce of energy he has in the tank, man. He's walking back exhausted. Dusko notices this. Everyone was noticing this. Like, everybody on Twitter during the fight was like, yo, Jordan Wright's not looking good after this first round. Even the commentators were like, oh, Jordan Wright looks to be sucking a bit of air. That's not good. So, yeah, it was just after everybody kind of noticed that, it was very clear that going into the second round, Jordan Wright was very tired, and Dusko took advantage of that and started throwing bombs on the feet and was just pressuring him constantly. It started off like with a bang, dude. He comes in and just starts landing punch after punch after punch after punch as Jordan Wright clinches up with him. He lets him clinch and just starts landing punch after punch after punch to Jordan Wright's body, clear, like making it worse for him because Jordan Wright's already sucking in air. Like, he's exhausted as is. Those shots to the body are just going to wear him down even more. It's going to hurt. And it wasn't like one hook, two hook, three hook. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over and over and over again. Like, it was a quick succession of punches right to the fucking sternum. And then he started landing, he started mixing it up to the head, started landing knees, and then it went to the ground. And it was very obvious once it got to the ground, Jordan Wright was fucking drained. There was no defense. Dusko started landing shots as they were going to the ground, and Jordan Wright was just turtling up. Dusko gets into a dominant position and starts mounting up, landing more punches, elbows, punches over and over again. It's so obvious at this point. Jordan Wright he's exhausted. He's not even intelligently defending himself. He's quite literally turtling up and not like adjusting his arms accordingly. Like, there's punches moving through. He's not moving out of the way. He's just turtling up and hoping for the best. Chris Taione's just sitting there watching him. In my opinion, it went on for a little too much longer than it should have, but great win by Dusko. Dusko just absolutely mauled Jordan Wright in the second round after noticing he was exhausted. Dusko picked up the TKO win after landing a violent series of punches and elbows. Like, those elbows that landed looked like they fucking were deadly. So it was pretty brutal. But we weren't done. We had rather a sad affair. I don't want to talk about it, but I have to. The bantamweight debut of Cub Swanson. Yes, we had Cub Swanson versus Jonathan Martinez, who's a mainstay at bantamweight and has some pretty damn good, like, notable wins. One of his most notable wins is his win over Vince Morales. And honestly, a lot of people were really rooting for Cub. In my heart, I knew that Jonathan Martinez was going to do something. Like, he was going to hurt Cub. But my heart was like, no, man, I love Cub too much. Cub Swanson for the win forever. This has to happen. No, it didn't happen, folks. From start to finish, Cub started off pretty strong, trying to gauge the distance. But as soon, and I mean it, as soon as Jonathan Martinez gauged that distance and got that kind of like, okay, this is where I can land strikes and this is where he can miss, it was just over. Jonathan Martinez slamming leg kicks, slamming left high kicks, just out of the range of Cub Swanson, forcing Cub Swanson to miss. He was constantly just weaving out of the way and then landing kicks. And it was really those body kicks and the leg kicks. The body kicks were really wearing down Cub Swanson physically, and then those leg kicks were just digging through. Like, it was clear they were hurting Cub Swanson. At one point, one of the leg kicks dropped him, and he was, like, struggling to get back up to his feet. Second round comes, it's the same story. Cub Swanson trying to get his game plan going, trying to close the distance to swing and get his boxing going, trying to land some takedowns, but he can't. Just Jonathan Martinez slapping these leg kicks in, and eventually it's like close to the end of the second round. He gets this nasty leg kick and just drops Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson just clearly wincing in pain. Like, it was basically a verbal submission. The leg kick was that bad. Some people were thinking that Cub Swanson might have fucking fractured or broke something, and I genuinely think it, because the way he dropped and immediately just started holding his leg, it's like, nah, man, it had to have broke or something, because there's no way that he ate all those other leg kicks like they were just a TV dinner, and then that one leg kick, it didn't even look like it was a brutal one either, just dropped him. It had to have broke after just that many leg kicks landing. But either way, it was a brutal leg kick clinic from Jonathan Martinez. It was nasty. That being said, this next fight is the main event, and kind of controversial for one reason. A lot of people's scorecards, it wasn't a robbery. No matter what, the right person got the call. It's just a lot of people were puzzled with how the judges scored this contest. So the main event was number 5 ranked Alexa Grasso versus number 6 ranked Viviane Araujo, or Araujo, I think. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it, Araujo. And honestly, I ain't gonna lie, it was a fucking great fight. Both girls brought it. And, it was just a back and forth striking affair. Hardly any grappling at all. And, that's how I like it, even though I like grappling as well. It was a great fight. But Alexa Grasso, even though for a lot of the fight was on the defensive back foot, again, just like Clarissa Shields earlier, was landing the cleaner shots, actually made Viviane miss a good portion of her shots, landed a couple takedowns of her own, just outstruck Viviane in every round. But there was a couple rounds where Alexa Grasso was a little slowed down, allowed too many shots to land, didn't land as much as she wanted to. In fact, Viviane outlanded her and landed takedowns to kind of steal the round away. So I gave at least 2 rounds to Viviane and 3 rounds to Alexa Grasso when it came to the end of the 5 rounds. And honestly, I wasn't the only one that thought that. Everybody thought it was either 4-1 or 3-2 Alexa Grasso. There was no argument whatsoever. It was more the judges. One of the judges saw a complete sweep, 5-0 for Alexa Grasso. Well, I guess more reasonably, the other 2 saw it 4-1 for Alexa Grasso. But either way, a lot of people were very puzzled with that 50-45 decision because it was a sweep, even though not arguably, very obviously, Viviane Araujo won at least 1 round. And it was kind of puzzling to fans. So, again, I hate to bring this up almost every, episode, but I think it's time we need to kind of get some new judges. Kind of, maybe, I don't know, get some fighters to be judges, people who, have been in there and kind of understand the game more. Because, again, a lot of these judges are boxing judges. They got their start judging boxing. So, yes, they're combat sports judges, but their score criteria via, muscle memory, you could say, is basically going to be, I'm going to score this as a boxing fight with grappling and everything else coming second. I'm always going to look for striking. So I feel like every judge is basically like, well, I mean, even though the striking was very indifferent on both ends, I'm still going to score it in one way because the striking is my main fucking focus. So, like I said, I hate having to bring this up every podcast because it seems to be a topic of conversation every podcast, the judges. But I think it's time we need to get actual, cage fighting judges. Like, people who've basically grown up around the sport to judge these fights. Not people who basically got their start from judging boxing fights. But anyway, those were the fights. No matter what, Alexa Grasso got the nod, and everybody's happy about it. Just a little confused about the scorecards. That's really it. There was supposed to be a fight that I was actually really upset about that, that didn't end up coming through, was Askar Askarov and Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval is a guy who just brings the fight. And Askar Askarov hardly ever gets any fights and is a monster, like a scary flyweight, especially with his grappling. But unfortunately, he's been having trouble with his weight cuts, including recently. He came a little bit overweight, and Askar Askarov, being the mensch he is, was like, no, I don't want to do a catchweight bout. I wanted to do this right. I wanted to make weight. So they had to axe the fight, unfortunately. Kind of unfortunate to Brandon Royval going through all that fucking training, all that work, just for the fight to be scrapped. But, I mean, I have to give Askar Askarov credit. He didn't want to take advantage of the weight difference. But, yeah, that was the card. Next week is going to be huge because, yes, that is right. I have not only UFC 280 early in the day, I'd say like the afternoon it's going to be for me, but then after that, leading around 7 o'clock, yeah, going to my first live fight card. Prospect Fighting Championships is doing a charity event with Showdown in the downtown. It's going to be incredible. Michael Imperiato just recently got announced. UFC veteran Kyle Propolek's going to be there. Adam Asenza is going to be there. It's going to be a huge event. I'm excited. My God, like there's going to be Cage Warriors vets there, PFL vets. It's just going to be a huge card. I'm excited. Definitely going to be vlogging it. Just like I said, I'm excited. So expect that and expect a lot of talk about it on next week's podcast because I am going to be glowing with excitement after the fights, no matter how boring they are. Because I'm going to be like, yeah, it's my first fucking fight card. Of course I'm going to be excited, but expect that for next week's episode because, yeah, we've got a huge event in UFC 280. Like, let's just take a quick look at this. Let's just take a look at the main card. First of all, we have Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev for the vacant lightweight title, which shouldn't have been stripped from Charles in the first place, in my opinion. I think they fucked Charles over on that. But anyway, and then we have Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. And speaking of Aljamain, he has come out and said some really fucked shit recently. I'm not going to go into detail, but after hanging out with Andrew Tate, he's kind of just went full throttle on his shitty beliefs. Turns out he's always been a shitty person, but he's just been more vocal recently about his shitty beliefs. A lot of it, like, he was blaming rape victims in his tweets. And that kind of baffled me. So I think it's safe to say, even though TJ Dillashaw is a big piece of shit as well, the lesser of two evils, I will be rooting for TJ Dillashaw next week. But that's not all on the card. We have another bantamweight belt. That's one of the featured belts. Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley. That's going to be a fucking banger because Peter Yan's a monster and Sean O'Malley is just an incredible striker, a very dynamic striker. And I'm curious to see as to like how well Sean O'Malley's grappling has become, especially his like takedown defense and his defensive grappling in general. But I'm also curious to see if Peter Yan will approach it within a very heavy wrestling approach. Because I feel like that's the only way to victory. But I also feel like Sean O'Malley's been training for it because he's expecting that, because that is the only way to victory. You know what I mean? So I'm curious to see how that fight's going to go. I'm expecting fireworks. I'm just very excited. Lightweight, even though it's Beneil Dariush, my God, man. We have Beneil Dariush and Mateus Gamrot. Mateus Gamrot is a fucking monster at lightweight. And it's just developing quick. I'm excited for this fight. Beneil Dariush is going to have one of his hardest fights ever, and same with Gamrot. Both guys are an incredibly tough matchup for each other, and I'm excited for it. Unfortunately, we didn't have Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady to start the main card. We have fucking Caitlin Chookagian and Manon Fiorot, but you know, we can deal with that. We have a stacked prelim card. I mean, we have Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady, Nikita Krylov versus Volkan Ozdemir, fucking Armin Petrosian versus AJ Dobson, Muhammad Makayev versus Malcolm Gordon. Like, these are huge. Zabaria Tukugov against Lucas Almeida. Like, Magomed Mustafayev is going to be fighting. Like, it's a stacked card for an Abu Dhabi card. It's stacked. I just don't like that first fight on the main card, that's all. But it's a stacked card. I'm excited for it. And if that wasn't enough, I get to watch that stacked card in the fucking afternoon. And then later that night, I get to watch a stacked regional card live at Bud Gardens. So I'm over the moon. But We also have nothing but weeks and weeks and weeks of UFC after this. There is no break for at least a good month or so. I'm excited because after 280, we have fucking Calvin Kattar main eventing a fight night. Calvin Kattar always brings the fight. The dude's a dog. Like, the UFC is very much spoiling us. UFC 281 is slated to be a complete fucking stacked fight card. Like, honestly, like, Adesanya versus Pereira, and then, I mean, we can get over Carla Esparza versus Zhang Weili, because Weili's going to starch Carla. But we have Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles, and Brad Riddell versus Renato Moicano, all after each other. Incredible. And then we have Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez. Like, the card's huge. And then my favorite, Matt Frevola versus Ottoman Azatayer. Matt Frevola is one of my favorite fighters because he's very, very, like, he loves to interact with fans on Twitter. And I'm rooting for him. But Ottoman Azatayer has one of the most legendary lore, like, one of the most legendary backstories. He never got to make his debut, I believe, because he was originally supposed to fight Matt Frevola, like, way back in January of 2021. But if you don't remember, he got kicked off that card for violating COVID protocols because he brought someone outside of his circle into the hotel that all the fighters were staying in, all over a bag that had a conspicuous product in it. Nobody knew what was in the bag. Nobody still knows what's in the bag. But, yeah, it was just a weird backstory. So I'm excited for that fight. Just that whole card is stacked. I'm excited for it. But anyway, I've been rambling enough, for this episode. I want to get going. I should probably end it off here. I just want to say I'm excited for next week because UFC 280 and then that live event. And then we have UFC 281 in November, which is going to be stacked. Definitely a good couple months for UFC fans. So anyway, I will see you guys in the next episode. I hope you guys have an awesome work week. At least try to enjoy it. I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.